Since well before Victor Hugo looked up at Notre Dame and thought, what if a hunchback lived in there? Authors have been inspired by Paris. Welcome to the Storytime in Paris podcast on Paris Underground Radio, where we keep that tradition alive by showcasing an author with a French connection in each episode. Every episode will feature 5 questions asked by you, our author's biggest fans, and answered live on air. Then, our authors will treat us to a reading of an excerpt from their book. Who knows? Maybe you'll even be inspired to write your own great French novel. I'm your host, Jennifer Garrity. Today, I have an incredibly special guest joining me in honor of Halloween. Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo needs no introduction, and you'll hear his reaction when I ask him for one. Victor Hugo lived from 1802 to 1885. He was a prolific writer whose work spanned more than 60 years. He was a poet, a playwright, a novelist, an essayist, an artist, and much, much more. He remains one of the best-known French writers in the world. His most famous works internationally are Les Misérables and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. How am I able to speak with Victor Hugo, you ask? Well, today my friend Eve Gallois will be channeling him. I've asked her to give a brief introduction to who she is and what she'll be doing. And she's asked me to remind you never to use a Ouija board and to do your research if you'd like to try channeling. She suggests researching parts work. Throughout our interview, I'll be speaking with Victor directly, but sometimes Eve is able to gain particular insight into Victor while she's channeling. So when she voices an opinion or gives an insight that is her own, she will signal it by saying, "This is Eve speaking." On this one occasion, you'll also notice that I asked more than 5 questions, but that's because who knows if I'll ever have the chance to speak with Victor Hugo again. Without further ado, please allow me to introduce Eve Gallois and Victor Hugo. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
I'm a human being. I'm a coach. I do individual coaching and I do career coaching and also a bit of business coaching. I am located in Alsace, in Colmar, which has the best Christmas market if you want to travel. It's 2.5 hours from Paris by TGV. And I'm just having fun exploring the world, discovering other humans, what they feel, and playing around.
Okay, so how do you do this?
It starts with the idea that we are all just one immense being that is spread around the earth as several parts of itself. Like, you are me, I am you, I am also your dog, I am the chair. Because we're all connected to each other, I can hear you through myself. I can hear anyone through myself. I could channel the part of me who is your chair or is your dog, and so I could actually have an idea of the feeling of that being. And if we work to become clear enough, we can actually channel the voice. I won't have access to specific memories. Some people do. I don't. But I can give you a general idea of the feeling of that person regarding this or that event or question, even if I have not myself lived through this event. And to give you an idea, I have basically not read anything from Victor Hugo except the few first pages of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but I found it quite hard to read, so I just gave up. So I hope that character won't take that on me.
I hope so too.
If you see me do that, this is Eve giving you insight, because sometimes the character won't want to answer, but I can tell you, he's feeling a bit stressed about it or whatever. Do you want me to say something specific so your audience will know when it's Eve speaking?
Yes, maybe if you could just say Eve speaking.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to conduct the interview the way that I normally do with an author. Mm-hmm. And maybe my questions are too specific. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, great. All right.
Okay. So give me just a second. Do you want to ask something more before I start channeling?
Oh, I have a question. Do I address myself to Victor? Okay. Can you introduce us a little bit to who you are and what you created when you were here on Earth?
Now, I mean, you're asking this like you don't know who I am, like you don't know what I've done. It's like asking someone who's very famous to introduce themselves and present what they've done. I cannot just give you an idea of my resume because it will be so long. I don't think you have that much time, and I really like to talk about myself. Even if some early works I'm not very fond of anymore, I really enjoy that. So I am known as Victor Hugo. I'm a prolific author. I enjoy witnessing the world around. I love describing it, putting it into words so people can get a feeling of what I'm seeing, can actually see the world through my own eyes. So this is Eve speaking. I can actually feel the width of the shoulders and a bit of the extra tummy that Victor Hugo has or had at the time. And actually, I think he had some pain in the right shoulder or something because it's just a bit more heavy on the right side. Now, you will need to ask him questions really... You need to stop him at some point, else he will just go on, and he will love that. So, okay.
Okay, excellent. Can you tell me about your connection to Paris and how you feel about Paris as a city?
This is Eve speaking. I just had like the largest breath, like I'm at the Sacré-Cœur and just in the morning and this is I felt the chest like open. Paris. It's a very large, never-ending source of inspiration. From the stench of the sewers to the most enticing frou-frou in Montmartre. It's almost like a laboratory where you can observe people, guinea pigs, going about and find out how they work. And the food.
The food. Do you have a favorite meal?
Actually, this is Eve speaking. I don't know if it's a fact, but I have a feeling of this boiled egg that you can eat in that specific restaurant on, I think it's on Rive Gauche, where you can just order that boiled egg with mayonnaise. I'm not sure. I will have to find you the name of this restaurant, but I think maybe it's the Voltaire or something. It's a very old one, and you can still order the 90 cents boiled egg there. Okay, so I have a feeling that he was big on small snacks and like sort of tartine, sort of bread and stuff to not something very crunchy. He was not kind of a crunchy guy, like something moist and gooey more.
Okay. Interesting. How aware are you of things that are happening now on Earth?
I am aware of what I can get through the mind who is channeling me. So I don't know. It's a big Earth. You're so big now.
Yes, wow. There are many of us.
Could never have enough time to write about all that. That's crazy.
Are you aware of the modern interpretations of your work, like the Disney film about the Hunchback of Notre Dame or the musical Les Mis?
This is Eve speaking. When you said Disney, I had some sort of chill. Like, what? Okay, I will go back to Victor here. So, Disney. I feel slightly annoyed that it's all so flat in terms of colors. What is it called? Movie. movie. It sounds like a cow thing. Movie. It's flat. It's a bit bland. Like, yeah, it's a blend. Like the scents are missing. It's you don't have the touch of the fabric. It's very, very. I think the people who made that are quite into sterile environments. Like, it has to be all clean and perfect, and it's very. It's quite plain in terms of feeling. It's I guess that children who need introduction to my work could actually enjoy it.
But it's very reductive.
But
Yeah.
yes. Oh, I think, yeah. I just had a picture of these comic books that you have. It really feels like maybe the comic book version of my book.
Ah, okay. Okay.
And it's very thin.
What about the musical Les Mis? Are you aware of that?
I really like music. I really like music. I know about the movie that was made from the musical.
Mm-hmm.
I see it. I like that this is less bland than the drawing. I like that it stinks. That's nice. It really stinks. In the good way, in the literary way, let's say. I like the tears. I like, oh, this Anne Hathaway is, she's very nice.
Excellent.
Oh, she has too many teeth, but that works. That's nice.
You've created in so many styles. You've written plays and poetry and novels and political speeches and everything else. And you've produced over 4,000 drawings from what I can tell. What is your favorite form of creation? And do you have a favorite piece of work?
I really like to doodle. I like to doodle while eating and looking at other people who are not noticing me. I like to take a sort of an instant picture of what they are doing in their natural state, not posing, no hiding anything. I like to get an idea of how they are bad or things that they feel ashamed of and that they only show when they're not aware. I like the truth of people there. I know that the doodles annoy a lot of people because it's these little things are sort of what I enjoy the most because they're quite what's the word not lasting.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of work that you can work on and on and on again and perfect. You'll do just the one, imperfect, and perfect because so imperfect.
Yeah, just for that moment in time.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll be right back with Storytime in Paris after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Storytime in Paris. From what I understand, you were an atheist, but you have been credited with single-handedly saving Notre Dame. What is it about Notre Dame that inspired you to write an entire book with it as a central character?
What do you mean single-handedly saving Notre Dame?
Well, Notre Dame was going to be destroyed, and because you wrote your book, they decided not to destroy it.
Oh. Really?
Were you unaware of this? Yeah.
Oh.
After the fall of the royals, when France became a very secular country, they wanted to destroy all the symbols of religion.
Actually, I would have liked to see Notre Dame off, so I would have the last testimony of it in my book. That would have been great. people could have imagined what it looked like, and the imagination would have made it perfect. Oh.
Are you suggesting that you should have destroyed Notre Dame after you wrote about it?
I could not have achieved something like this. I'm just a man. But if art is about creating something that is testimony of a time, and that the only thing that you know for sure is what is in your mind, and that you really have to work your mind around what did it feel like. You have to dive deep into it and not just saying surface and say, oh, I've seen this building, it's in this book there. No imagination. I think that if you have the support, the material to work your imagination from, it's just like too easy. It's lazy.
Okay. What inspired you to write the character of Quasimodo?
This is Eve speaking. I just had an itch in my right shoulder. And I think there is something there, a real pain in the right shoulder that has something like, I have the need to roll the right shoulder, to move it. It's a real annoyance. So there is a link with the character there. Like, there is this pain there, this pain in the body. That is, I don't know what it means exactly, but it's something there. I'll get back to him. What made me write this character? I like the notion of ugly and beauty at the same time. And I'm sort of also annoyed by the prejudice of people. So people who are really prejudiced, they will give traits, they will give character traits to people just on the physical appearance, without reading them, without listening to them. Now, if you just look at me, you can imagine something about me. But if you read my words, I'm different. I'm someone else. Now you have the idea of who I am as the author, but I just pee like everyone else. So there is this notion of, I don't like flat, shiny characters, like perfect pictures. I like the deep, I like the disease, I like the depth, physical depth of a wound. I like digging into this, because down there is the real humanity. And it stinks.
Is there a secret or a story about your work that no one alive knows?
You are journalists. They always ask this kind of... You're annoying in the good way. I really like you. Well, we all have secrets. But if I tell you, it won't be a secret anymore. And some people will start to research it. And annoy the shit out of everyone who could have been involved there. But you know, when you're an artist, there are a lot of things that happen behind closed doors. Good things, bad things, sexy things. But I guess it would still be boring to some people, so why go there? Why do you need the gossip? Why do people need the gossip?
Well, let me ask you a related question then, that's maybe less gossipy. Is there something that people have misunderstood about you or your work?
Now, the person whose body I'm using right now to speak to you had mentioned the word autism. And she herself is wondering if I could have been autistic. Could I have been autistic? She's showing me some examples of people who have the same kind of speech that I have, the same kind of writing, let's say, that I have. I guess at some point, yes, I could have been on the autistic spectrum. But it's not something that you would talk about, or it's a bit complicated. And I think I totally lost the question there because this topic of autism seems very interesting. I'd like to write about.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm just going to ask you one last question. What advice would you give to a young writer starting out now, trying to create?
I love this question. Oh, I need a stage. I need trumpets. I need an orchestra and a goat. What advice could I give to a young author now? Take your finger out of your asshole and write. Just write. Use your fingers. Use a pen. Give up on these little squares that you pinch and push. That's not writing. Writing has something sensual, very sexual in the way you form the letters with a pen, with the scratch of the pen on the paper. Choose a specific paper, choose your pen. Even if you don't write the whole thing on paper, just feel it. Make love to your story. Just pour your soul into it. Pour your semen into it if you have some. If you don't, you already pour it anytime you write because you're a female. So just write about what you want to write about. Do not try to conform to what people want from you, because some people will always hate what you do. Some people will always be jealous about what you do. In the end, they keep buildings up because you wrote something nasty about some ugly guy who's just ringing bells. So just keep writing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Victor Hugo. It was very lovely speaking with you.
Oh, I'd like to do that again sometime. Are you free on Friday?
Sure.
Okay. I know this lovely place. I guess is Montmartre still up and running, or?
Yes, it is.
I know of this place. They're very, very good drinks.
I like very, very good drinks.
All right. I really like you. Okay, this is Eve speaking. I will not condone what's happening there. Okay. So it was fun.
What is it like channeling him?
It's channeling someone is always different because you have a physical sensation when your body is different from them. You have sometimes even the posture is changing. His posture was quite relaxed in the seat, like very pushed back in the chair and at ease. Like he was not shifty. He was like, I'm there. I'm here for you. I won't bulge. He liked the attention.
He was much more charming and forthcoming than I thought he would be.
Well, I suppose that it's not the same when you have someone one-to-one in this setting than when you have someone giving a conference of sorts. And from what I felt, he was quite different in private from what he gave in public. And if this idea of autism were to be confirmed, it would explain it, because the social interactions are quite hard for autistic people, and their perception of the world is quite specific too. So he really likes blondes.
All right. Well, I'm sorry you had to feel that.
Well, It was interesting. It's always interesting to have that sort of feelings.
It's very funny. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. Anytime you want, I'm ready to give it a try.
That was amazing. As you know, I usually ask the authors to read an excerpt of their own work, but I didn't want to take up Victor's time, or Eve's for that matter. So when we get back from a quick break, I will read to you from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And now, back to Storytime in Paris. Chapter 4, Earthenware and Crystal. Day followed day. Calm gradually returned to the soul of La Esmeralda. Excess of grief, like excess of joy, is a violent thing which lasts but a short time. The heart of man cannot remain long in one extremity. The gypsy had suffered so much that nothing was left to her but astonishment. With security, hope had returned to her. She was outside the pale of society, outside the pale of life, but she had a vague feeling that it might not be impossible to return to it. She was like a dead person who should hold in reserve the key to her tomb. She felt the terrible images which had so long persecuted her gradually departing. All the hideous phantoms, Pirate Torturu, Jacques Carmelu, were effaced from her mind, all, even the priest. And then, Phoebus was alive. She was sure of it. She had seen him. To her, the fact of Phoebus being alive was everything. After the series of fatal shocks which had overturned everything within her, she had found but one thing intact in her soul, one sentiment: her love for the captain. Love is like a tree. It sprouts forth of itself, sends its roots out deeply through her whole being, and often continues to flourish greenly over a heart in ruins. And the inexplicable point about that is that the more blind is this passion, the more tenacious it is. It is never more solid than when it has no reason to be. La Esmeralda did not think of the captain without bitterness, no doubt. No doubt it was terrible that he also should have been deceived, that he should have believed that impossible thing, that he could have conceived of a stab dealt by her, who would have given 1,000 lives for him. But after all, she must not be too angry with him for it. Had she not confessed her crime? Had she not yielded, a weak woman that she was, to torture? The fault was entirely hers. She should have allowed her fingernails to be torn out rather than such a word to be wrenched from her. In short, if she could but see Phoebus once more, for a single minute, only one word would be required, one look, in order to undeceive him, to bring him back. She did not doubt it. She was astonished also at many singular things. At the accident of Phoebus's presence on the day of the penance, at the young girl with whom he had been. She was his sister, no doubt. An unreasonable explanation, but she contented herself with it, because she needed to believe that Phoebus still loved her, and loved her alone. Had he not sworn it to her? What more was needed, simple and credulous as she was? And then in this matter, were not appearances much more against her than against him? Accordingly, she waited. She hoped. Let us add that the church, that vast church which surrounded her on every side, which guarded her, which saved her, was itself a sovereign tranquilizer. The solemn lines of that architecture, the religious attitude of all the objects which surrounded the young girl, the serene and pious thoughts which emanated, so to speak, from all the pores of that stone, acted upon her without her being aware of it. The edifice also had sounds fraught with such benediction and such majesty that they soothed this ailing soul. The monotonous chanting of the celebrants, the responses of the people to the priest, sometimes inarticulate, sometimes thunderous, the harmonious trembling of the painted windows, the organ bursting forth like 100 trumpets, the 3 belfries humming like hives of huge bees, that whole orchestra on which bounded a gigantic scale, ascending, descending, incessantly from the voice of a throng to that one bell, dulled her memory, her imagination, her grief. The bells in particular lulled her. It was something like a powerful magnetism which those vast instruments shed over her great waves. Thus every sunrise found her more calm, breathing better, less pale. In proportion as her inward wounds closed, her grace and beauty blossomed once more on her countenance, but more thoughtful, more reposeful. Her former character also returned to her, somewhat even of her gaiety, her pretty pout, her love for her goat, her love for singing, her modesty. She took care to dress herself in the morning in the corner of her cell for fear of some inhabitants of the neighboring attics might see her through the window. When the thought of Phoebus left her time, the gypsy sometimes thought of Quasimodo. He was the sole bond, the sole connection, the sole communication which remained to her with men, with the living. Unfortunate girl. She was more outside the world than Quasimodo. She understood not in the least the strange friend whom chance had given her. She often reproached herself, not for feeling a gratitude which should close her eyes, but decidedly, she could not accustom herself to the poor bell ringer. He was too ugly. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. Big thanks again to Eve Gallois for being such a lovely conduit and channeling in her second language. And 1,000 merci to Victor Hugo for granting me audience. I'll actually be in Montmartre this Friday, so who knows? I'm your host, Jennifer Garrity, and you can find me on all socials at Jennyphoria, JennyPhoria, and on my website, jennyphoria.com. Storytime in Paris was produced by me at Paris Underground Radio. For more information on this show and shows like it, please go to parisundergroundradio.com. Thank you for listening.